What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, me and Tucker are going to share with you 5 mistakes you cannot afford to make when planting your fall garden. Let's go! The first mistake you cannot afford to make is kind of 2 in 1. It has to do with trying to hold on to your summer veggies too late in the season, and as a result, planting out your fall stuff too late. So you'll notice right here, we've got some green beans. They still have some beans on them, but for the most part, the production is really slowed down. There's not many flowers left. So what we don't want to do is just try to leave this plant in the ground and not get our fall stuff in because we were like so adamant about getting one more harvest out of these beans. Instead, we want to pull these beans out, harvest all the beans from here, and then prep this whole bed for planting. So I know it's hard to do. It's a mistake I've made so much in the past. It's like you want to just hold on to and get as much as you possibly can out of this summer crop. When it comes down to it though, we need to get something in here to replace this, like cabbage or something, and that's going to produce so much more food for us later into the season and do well when it's really starting to get cold out. Once these cold nights come, this bean production is going to be basically zero. It's going to completely slow down. So what I'm going to do is pull these bean plants out like this, and then I'll just go through and harvest all these beans from here. So we're still going to get a nice harvest from this, but you'll notice there's very few flowers. So these beans are probably going to be about the last beans that are going to be produced from this plant. I'm also going to go through and grab some of the harvest from things that I forgot was even in here. I was pulling out some plants and I noticed I've got a bunch of onions that I've never even harvested. Some nice size ones too. So we're going to go through the bed, harvest a bunch of the things that are still in here, and we're also going to cut out some stuff like the amaranth. I want this bed basically completely cleaned out. Let's move through and pull all this stuff out. This way we can get our fall stuff in the ground, and we'll grab some harvest along the way. We're almost finished cleaning this bed out. Let's just get this massive cabbage right here. Cut this thing out. Oh my gosh, this thing's so huge. Get rid of some of these outer leaves and just save the inner leaves. It's a little past, but it'd still be good eating. I just had so many cabbage. This one kind of got left, even though it's a huge one. We'll get a new round of cabbage in. So I'm gonna put my good stuff in here. I'm gonna get rid of some of these leaves. Compost those. Got some more carrots to grab from this spot. Right here. See if we got any good ones. Tuck will take any good ones. Nice little harvest of carrots there. We'll save these. We'll get another round of carrots planted because we still have time. More carrots. Then we'll get the last of these onions here. And then this bed will be basically cleaned out. And I want to show you what I'm doing with the cabbages. So I want to pull out all the roots from the cabbage because it's going to be tough to grow anything when there's just a thick mat of roots. So we're going to pull this out and then shake out as much soil from it as we can. And I'll go into why I love this soil so much in just a minute, because this stuff is just incredible. But let me shake that out. Then we'll get rid of this. And that bed is essentially cleaned out. Now I'm just gonna go around and level it, and then we'll do some work on the actual soil. The second mistake you can't afford to make when prepping and planting your fall garden is failing to amend your soil before actually planting. So this bed right here kicked out so much food. Because of that, the soil is depleted of nutrition, and also at this time of the year, the soil gets incredibly dry. So before I even work on adding some more compost and nutrition to supercharge this bed and get it ready for growing, what I want to do is get this bed a little more saturated, because look how dry it is right here. One thing that's really important, I think, is the kind of medium that you're growing with. So what I use for my base in this bed right here is coco coir. And one of the reasons I use coco coir is because it is incredible at accepting water. So peat moss, when it gets super dry, it almost becomes hydrophobic, and it's tough for water to get accepted by it. But when it comes to the coco coir, it accepts water so easily. So you'll notice right here, just an example, I'll do this and the coco coir just takes this water in so quickly, as opposed to the peat moss. So look, already that's like nice and saturated. So what I'm going to do is go around and put a sprinkler up and get this bed more saturated, mix it in a little bit, and then I'm going to go through and add some compost and some more fertilizer to the bed to supercharge it so that I can just kick out even more fall crops. And one thing about the coco coir also is just it accepts water really well, but it also drains really well. Because of that, it can dry out a little quicker than something like peat moss would, but I kind of think that's a good thing because that allows the roots to have like a good level of oxygen so they don't get like root rot from sitting in damp soil that's like too wet for too long. What we're gonna do is just get this bed completely saturated, then I'll come back and move on to the next step. While the sprinkler's going, what I'm gonna do is come through and just mix up some of the soil just so it gets saturated deeper into the bed. And this is important because we don't want to be planting our stuff into super dry soil. That's going to be a terrible start. So to avoid that, what I'm going to do is just go through, mix up a lot of this soil, and you can see it's already getting a lot more saturated. So we're just going to do that for a lot of the bed and go relatively deep down there. But it's pretty wet the further I go down. So we're just going to make sure this is getting a nice level of saturation. And then we're going to come through and add all of our amendments and our compost and stuff. But it's already looking a lot better. The bed is all rehydrated now, and we're ready to start actually amending the soil and adding some nutrition. So what I like to do is, now that our bed is ready to go, we lost a good amount of soil when I pulled out some of the roots of some things. So we're gonna try to add a little bit more soil in, and we also wanna add some compost. I'm not just gonna add pure compost. Instead, what I'm going to do is add some of my own homemade soil. This soil consists of cocoa coir, compost, vermiculite, and perlite. So we're gonna add about 2 or 3 inches. I'm just gonna show you how I do it on this 1 square foot right here. So we'll take this soil, we'll layer it like that, and then we're gonna mix it into the top few inches of my soil that's already been rehydrated. This is gonna make a really nice medium for us to plant into. So we're gonna mix the whole bed, just like we're doing here. But I'm just gonna give you a little microcosm example. Then we're gonna take some all-purpose fertilizer and we're gonna layer it in here, then mix it into the top few inches. This is really important because not only did we grow heavy feeding crops like cabbages, kale, and all different kind of plants in this bed, which depleted a lot of the nutrition, we are also going to be planting some cabbage here, and that's again a heavy feeder. So we want to make sure we're adding some fertilizer. So we're going to just sprinkle the fertilizer in the top of the soil, just like this. Then we're going to mix it into the top few inches. Level it all off, just like that. Now this location is ready to plant in. And that leads us to our third mistake you cannot afford to make at this time of the year. You can't afford to be planting the wrong kind of plants. We're going into fall. We need to plant cold hardy plants. You don't want to just like push the limits so far trying to get a cucumber in the ground when you only have about 40 or 50 days left, and that plant takes about 50 or 60 days to produce. Cucumbers are summer plants. They're not going to do good once the cold comes. So you want to plant things in the ground that are going to not only have enough time, but are cold hardy heading into fall. So we're going to get this cabbage planted. This is the Melissa Savoy. Now that our soil is prepped and ready to go. And you'll notice this is relatively dried out. We don't want this super wet when we're transplanting. Maybe a little too dry and potentially a little root bound, but we still should be okay. So we're going to drop this in and we're going to bury it a little deeper than we planted it. You'll notice a few white flies. That's okay. We can hit it with a safer soap insecticide or even a neem oil to get rid of those white flies. So the square foot method also helps us understand our spacing. I had to add a new string. A few of the strings broke. That's all right though. This is such a good way for us to gauge, what to plant where and how much space each plant actually needs. Now we're just going to water this all in. And look how well the soil drains the water and everything. So that's what we like to see. When it comes to growing things like some of your root crops, some of your other fall crops, we're going to do the same exact thing where we're just going to take some extra soil, add a couple inches of it, mix it in, add some fertilizer, and then mix that in also. Then we'll direct sow things like beets and carrots. This way we're going to have plants that have adequate nutrition and that can not only grow quickly but can also produce and be really healthy late in the season. The fourth mistake you cannot afford to make is we're not done here yet. Knock that mulch over. I just gave you a little example of what it was. We need to make sure that we're mulching. So I like to use just even like a simple leaf mulch like this around our plants, because now that our soil is rehydrated, we don't want it drying out too quickly. Also, this could be a tough time of year to grow for a lot of plants because we're in August, we're mid-August here, heading into late August. You'll get some days where like tomorrow, the next day, it's gonna be like 90 degrees, and then a couple days after, it'll be 70 degrees. So there's a big shift in temperature in a short period of time. Having a nice mulch down will help regulate the temperature of the soil and also help to retain a good amount of moisture. So the mulch is really important heading into fall and even in the middle of the summer. So you gotta make sure you're mulching your plants. That's definitely a big thing. For the rest of the bed, we're gonna plant it the same way we did that one crop. So, to kind of rehearse what we did, we removed the old plants, we amended our soil, we got the fall crops in the right plants at the right time, then we put a mulch down. Now the final thing we need to do, which is super important, is we need to actually protect our crops from a number of different things at this time of the year. The first thing we need to protect our crops from when they're young is especially from insects. So with a simple insect netting like this form of protection is super easy, super efficient. And whenever I plant a new round of crops, I always get an insect netting on top. I'll leave this insect netting on this bed until the plants get so big that I have to remove it. Additional to the insect netting, what I like to use, especially right now that it's mid-August and it's getting really hot, is a 40% shade cloth. I'll just throw the shade cloth over the insect netting too to protect the plants. So midday for young plants, when it's super hot out, I'll come by, I'll throw the shade cloth on the bed for like 40 minutes or so, just to give the plants a little break from the heat. That'll help a really lot. And it just helps, you know, the plants grow instead of like struggling in the really hot days. As we start to get later into the season and the frosts start to come, I'll use a row cover. This is good frost protection. So I'll then throw this over the top. So you cannot afford to make the mistake of failing to protect your crops. You put all the effort into it. We went through all the steps of what's important to do and the mistakes to avoid. If you avoid these mistakes, I'm confident you're going to get a nice fall crop, because when it comes to gardening, preparation is what leads to healthy, successful plants and big harvests. So you got to make sure you're hitting all these important facts and avoiding these mistakes, because if you end up with just a few of these mistakes, it can definitely set you back. So that's really what's important when it comes to your fall garden. And I'm confident this year that we're going to get massive harvests going late into fall and probably into early winter, because I can even throw a plastic cover on here if I want, like a 6 mil greenhouse plastic, and that'll let me grow even later into the season. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck have a lot of work to do now. We've got to finish amending our soil and then get all this stuff in. We've got so many things to plant: broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, every kind of brassica you could possibly think of. We've even got so many lettuces that are ready to go: red sorrel, bok choy. We have to plant our beets still, our carrots. So it's a really fun time of the year. It's almost like a second round of spring now that we're heading into fall. So we just want to encourage you guys to get out there, get your fall stuff planted, avoid these mistakes, and you'll be able to be eating fresh food so late into the season. You'll be so happy that you actually put the work in when maybe you really didn't want to, because it can be a little demoralizing if your summer garden didn't do that great. Our summer garden is still doing pretty well, but you can't get caught up in what's happening right now. You always have to look to the future. That's one of the greatest things about gardening. It's all about investing and then letting your garden pay you dividends. And it's so much fun to be out here and just to get our hands dirty and get back into the soil, basically. The shade cloth is going to be really important at this time of the year, so make sure you guys focus on that, especially when you're transplanting. Like right now, it's a sunny day. It's not the perfect time to transplant, but if we throw the shade cloth over the top, that'll almost create a little version of our own shade. So that's really big. Me and Tuck wanted to say thank you for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it with your friends. We also wanted to thank one of our new channel members, Marcia Runkel. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. It means the world to me and the little homie. And he's laying in the shade because it's pretty hot out here today. But we just wanted to get out here, share this with you, and encourage you to get your fall garden planted. We also wanted to tell you to check out the merch down at jamesprigioni.com. Grab a Grow shirt, grab a Gardening is Life shirt, and be part of the team. We had an absolute blast. We hope you got a lot of value out of the video, and we'll be back to you again real soon. James and Tuck, we